So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at how a 5-number summary can be used to answer a bunch of different questions. What we're given here is a problem of 4th grader test scores, and we're asked a bunch of different questions about how girls and boys compare. And so we're given the summary statistics for both the girls' test scores and the boys' test scores. The first question asks us which group had the highest scores, and we can look at this by looking at the summary statistic of the maximum. You can see that the maximum any girl scored was 5.8 on their test, whereas the boy had a highest score of 5.9, so the boys have the highest score in the class. The next question asks which group has the greatest range. Remember, to calculate the range, we just need to subtract the maximum from the minimum. So we will do this for both genders. For girls, the maximum score is 5.8 and the minimum score is 2.5. This gives us a range of 3.3. For boys, on the other hand, their maximum score was 5.9, the minimum was 2.7, and that makes the range 3.2. So the girls have a slightly wider range than the boys. The next question asks about the IQR. Remember, the IQR is also a measure of how spread out the data is. To calculate the IQR, you just want to take the difference between Q3 and Q1, and that will capture the middle 50% of the data. For girls, the IQR is 1, so this is just going to be 4.7 minus 3.7. For boys, the difference is 4.9 minus 4.1, so the IQR for them is 0.8. And again, we can see that the girls' IQR is slightly larger than the boys', again suggesting that the girls' scores are slightly more spread out than the boys' scores. The next question asks about the skewness of the two groups. Remember, in the box plot diagrams, we looked at skewness by looking at the symmetry of the two boxes that we created. Each box was looked at by comparing the quartile to that median. And so we can compare Q2 to Q1 and Q2 to Q3 for each group to see if they're symmetric. When we calculate these two boxes for the girls and the boys, we see that the girls have a lower box of 0.6 and an upper box of 0.4, whereas the boys have boxes for the lower box and the upper box that are of the same size. So the boys' distribution is symmetric because that lower box and upper box are about the same size, whereas the girls have a slightly longer box on the bottom, and so their distribution is skewed to the left. The last question then asks which group generally did better on the test, and we can look at this overall by comparing the summary statistics for both the boys and the girls. Now, each of these statistics are a measure of position. The minimum is the measure of the lowest position. The Q1 is the measure of who was in the lower 25%. The median is in the lower 50%, and the Q3 in the lower 75%. And you can see that for every one of these measures of position, the boys did better. And also for every one of these summary statistics, the boys did better on all of them. So generally, the boys did better on this test. So that's how you use a 5-number summary to compare two different groups. What we'll do next is we'll learn more about the standard deviation and how it's very useful to look at and compare different groups of things.